Hey, look, a new DLC. I wonder if we got any new cards or champions. Oh, this guy's pretty cool, the Spine Chief. Nice and edgy. I wonder what the Exiled champion is like. Oh my god, is that a beetle on a crystal speeder bike that also functions as a Gauss cannon? Take my money. Take my money. Coming soon!
What the fuck?
Okay, deep breath. What is up, everybody? This is Logan, aka Viable. I hope you're having a great day or night wherever you are in the world. Today, we're going to talk about the upcoming DLC for Monster Train called
The Last Divinity,
and hopefully prepare you to hit the ground running when it launches. So let's roll right into it. There are two new resources in the game, because what we really needed were more things to manage. Those being charged echoes and pack shards. I'm not sure why they chose to go with two-word names when everyone is just going to call them shards and echoes anyways, but at least they didn't name anything silly in this DLC. You wouldn't want one of the card names to be something that could easily be mistaken for something else when said aloud. In all fairness, the devs did fix this very quickly by changing the card name to Fractured, but ooh man, I was this close to making a compilation of streamers saying sharded for the first time. This is Spine Chief. His 3 upgrade paths are a little more synergistic than most champions. The first makes him into a massive tank and provides your allied units on the same floor with 5 to 20 attack per echo on the floor, depending on how far down this path you've gone. The second path gives the Chief a strike effect that provides you with 1 echo every time he attacks, and gives you stacks of multi-strike as you continue upgrading him this way. The third applies a few points of Reap to all enemies every time you gain an echo. This might sound a bit underwhelming compared to the other two, but as it turns out, Reap is an absolute nuke when it comes to killing bosses. Let me explain. At the end of every turn, each enemy takes damage equal to the number of stacks of Reap on them multiplied by the number of echoes in their room. That means if Daedalus has 2 stacks of Reap and there are 4 echoes on his floor, he'll take 8 damage after combat. Not impressed yet? Why would you be? Those are some really softball numbers. Now what if, for example, our Chief and a couple copies of good old Sharded here gave Daedalus an average of 8 stacks of Reap each turn. On top of that, Sharded's, Fractured, gets us to 6 echoes each turn before we are reduced back to the 4 echo cap at the end of the turn. That means Daedalus takes 48 damage on the first turn, 96 damage on the second turn, 144 damage on the third turn. That's a total of 288 damage by the end of the third turn with just the first upgrade on our champion and a couple copies of our starter card. Throw in, I don't know, some uncommon that applies 13 or 14 Reap, and we actually get to 560 damage by the third turn of combat. It's worth noting that if you're playing either of the Wormkin champions, all of your starter cards, plus 1 random card from every draft pack will become infused, meaning that they add an echo every time you play them, so getting echoes on each floor is not a big deal. Now there are 3 big themes within Wormkin. The first are cards that care about you having a lot of echoes, so going over the cap of 4 each turn. The second is Inspire, which triggers every single time you gain a new echo, and the third is Extract, which spins your echo to give you some effect. Now, Inspire and overstacking your echoes tend to work very well together. You just accrue a lot of echoes, gain value on the way, and then you don't really care too much if they're drained. Inspire and Extract also work pretty well because you generate this nice flow of gaining new echoes and spending new echoes, and the Inspire cards don't really care how many echoes you have. The one big anti-synergy is between overstacking echoes and using extract cards. These two don't work well together, you just can't build up enough while also spending some of your echoes. So try to avoid playing cards that care about each of these two things in the same deck. Now this is Echo Right. He's obviously freaking adorable, but let's just look at his upgrade pass. His first makes him hit like an absolute truck and gives you your consumed spells back every turn. His second, on the other hand, infuses your cards, gives you more consumed cards, and makes a ridiculous amount of armor.
You just said what?
Oh, and the third makes some eggs. See, I want to like the eggs. The problem is the things that hatch from them aren't small like you would expect. They're freaking absolute monsters. The problem is you can't play more eggs aside from the egg that Echo Right makes because they take up so much freaking space. Eggs are dead, your dreams are dead, let's move on. Now on to pack shards. They're essentially a new currency that you accrue at added locations on the map like this, this, and this. Pack shards differ from gold in that instead of spinning them, you get them for free along with the invents that make them. But the more shards you have, the more your threat level raises. And as your threat level raises, enhanced versions of enemies will spawn in each of the fights. Take just a few shards and you'll see a boss get a small buff or a couple units like this spawn. But be wary if you start guzzling down crystals like a suburban mom in a Wiccan cult. No one cares about how your moods change the weather, Cynthia. I don't need to listen to you scream at the cashier just because you think you're responsible for the thunderstorm that just whipped up. Anyways, take on too many pack shards and some of your waves might start to look like this. The three main places where you'll be accruing pack shards are the Divine Boons, which gives you gold in exchange for 10 pack shards, Divine Horde, which gives you a random artifact in exchange for 15 pack shards, and the Divine Temple. The Divine Temple will give you your choice of 2 random spell upgrades and the ability to sacrifice a unit to put its essence into another unit.
Whoa, hold up. You're telling me that units have essences now?
Yep.
Tell me that they just are like the text and the stats of the unit, so at least I don't have to learn a whole new side to every single card in the game?
A few of them are that easy.
Let's take Morsel Maker, for example. I bet he still makes morsels, right?
Nope. Just a flat buff each turn. In all honesty, I think the unit essences are really good balancing mechanics. A lot of the weaker units actually have really strong essences, so from a design perspective, that's going to be a thumbs up for me. Last thing about pack shards, to face the last Divinity, you have to have at least 100 shards, but he becomes stronger if you have more than that, so I would plan out your path on the map to get to exactly 100 when you face him. Now when fighting the last Divinity, you'll fight him on all 3 floors at once, and he'll cleanse debuffs on those floors. If you play on top floor, he has a sweeping effect. If you play on middle floor, he multi-strikes. And if you play on bottom floor, he has trample. Very quick last note on him, he will attack your pyro every turn, but he gives you a little bit of extra armor to begin with, so just make sure you aren't going in with too low health. Oh, and his waves look like this. Moving on. One of the more interesting new events gives you a choice between a random unit upgrade or a card called For the Greater Good. Now the unit upgrade is kind of mediocre. The ones I've seen so far only trigger on strike, so definitely don't go for it if your units have 0 attack. But why would you when For the Greater Good is an absolute absurdly busted card? Like, look at this statue, yoink. Oh man, a scary tank dude, yoink. It is worth noting that you can't take units that have been enhanced by your threat levels, so this absolute beefcake can't be tempted. Well, maybe a good donut would do it. The next busted event is this one, and you should always take it. And don't worry, the good old Wingmaker is not removed from your deck when you complete it, so feel free to upgrade it. But when you do get the 5 kills, you'll be rewarded with an actual copy of Hef herself. And she is thick! The last one I want to talk about is this event. Each of these artifacts seems terribly bad, though if you survive one fight with them, you get an upgraded version. But the main reason to mention this one is the fact that the Broken Wheel, which is one of the bad sides of the artifacts, can actually be really useful for you. If you're trying to complete the small deck event, the Broken Wheel actually purges every single unit that you play on death for the next fight. So if you're running a bunch of Queen Zimplings and Dregs, get that achievement real easy. Just to give a quick rundown of the other events, there's this one which lets you purge cards in exchange for pack shards. There's this one which lets you build a card. Kinda cool, a little weird to explain. I've seen some terrible things. And finally, there's this one which lets you merge 2 spell cards or make copies of a card and have it cost 0. Moving on. Now on to new cards. First we have Apex Imp, which is a nice hybrid creature. Doesn't really function in the Imp decks, but at least it says Imp on it, I guess, and it's a decent backline or frontline unit, just kind of whatever you need. Next is Steel Singer. Steel Singer is the biggest Awoken unit that doesn't say Awoken. It's kind of like if Awoken Hollow and Bounty Stalker had a baby. Then we have Eelgorgan. Eelgorgan is like if Dante's Gatling gun ran out of ammo every turn and had to reload. For Umbra, we have Morsel Maid. Morsel Maid really combos hard with Wretch, so look for things that allow you to make a lot of morsels in one turn, or even just put a lot of morsels in your hand at a time. Last but not least, we have Hallowed Halls. I'm not sure why they chose to go with 4 creatures in 1 spell, but Hallowed Halls is pretty cool. Just make sure you don't run it in Reform decks. You can't actually choose the order in which your creatures come back when you reform them like this, so it can be tough to split your frontliners and backliners correctly. I would suggest playing Hallowed Halls in something more like an Imp deck. All of these cards are very good. I know that a lot of them will change, and some of them have already changed. For example, Steel Singer has replaced its Rejuvenate ability with the Awoken's new keyword, which I'll explain in a second, but generally just take them if you encounter them. And now for some miscellaneous changes. The first couple are Covenant changes. Covenant 10 used to daze all friendly units when they enter the top floor, and now it'll Ember Drain the first unit you play on that floor, so just grab some morsels or some imps and go ham. Covenant 25, which used to reduce your capacity by 1 on a random floor, now reduces it by 1 on the middle floor specifically. There are also finally some ways for us to make our own melee weakness, and this actually does combo with the Pyre, so grab your Boons of Blacksmith and Vapor Funnel and have a good time. And finally, we have the insane new keyword from Awoken called Cultivate. Cultivate buffs the health and attack of your smallest unit on each floor equal to the Cultivate number each turn, which gives them a way to interact with sweepers and multi-strikers, and finally something to do with Primordium when playing Awoken. One thing I forgot to include in the video, I do have a chart that I made of all the different threat levels at any given number of pack shards for every single ring, and I'll put that in the description down below.
There are a couple missing data points, but I wasn't playing in the beta, so what can you do?
Whew, that was a lot of work. This was my first heavily edited video, so I hope you guys liked it. Also, if you want to see the new DLC in action, I'll be streaming for several hours the first 4 days following its release. And we'll have some collaborative content with other streamers as well as some goofy challenges, so I hope to see you there. Links in the description if you don't know where to find my stream. Until next time, keep your trains rolling and I'll catch you in the next one.